You were never given a choice about the life you woke up inside of. And the day you stop resenting that fact is the day it stops running you. No one asked whether you wanted this family, this body, this country, this decade to be born into. No one handed you a form and let you choose your temperament, your wiring, the particular set of wounds you'd spend your 30s trying to understand. You arrived mid-sentence into a story already in progress, and you were told to make something of it. So you did. You took what was in front of you and bent it toward a future you could see, and that same instinct, one that made you, carries a hidden cost you have never named. Because underneath the drive, there is a quiet resentment. Toward the setback that cost you years, toward the timing that was wrong, toward the origin you didn't ask for, the people who shaped you before you could consent, the raw material of a life you would not have designed this way. You have spent enormous energy trying to master your fate, to overpower it, outrun it, prove it wrong. And here is the thing no one tells the ambitious. The fate was never the problem. The war against it was. The exhaustion you carry isn't from the climb. It's from climbing while cursing the mountain. There is a word for the exit from that war. An old, hard word from a man who had more reason than almost anyone alive to hate his own life. He didn't use it to escape his suffering. He used it to swallow it whole. By the end of this, that word is going to belong to you. Look closely at where your energy actually goes. Not the energy you spend on what's ahead, the plan, the build, the next move. That energy is clean. It's aimed at something you can still touch. Look instead at the other half, the half that runs backward. The replaying of the decision that went wrong. The low, constant hum of, if only it had gone differently. If only I'd started earlier. If only they'd believed in me. If only I'd been dealt the hand he was dealt. This is the builder's hidden tax, and almost no one accounts for it. You are running a second campaign at all times. A war against events that have already happened, against a past that has already closed. And unlike the fight for the future, which you can sometimes win, this one is structurally unwinnable. The unchangeable cannot be defeated. You can rage at it, negotiate with it, refuse to accept it, and it will not move an inch because it is already done. This is not a call to go soft about what's ahead. Ambition for what's next is not the enemy here. It is the whole point. What's poisoning you is something more specific and more foolish. Resentment of the given. The parts that are simply true and will not change. And the honest answer to that is not positive thinking. It is not a brighter story told over the top of the facts. It is something older and harder and stranger than optimism. Not a comfort. Demand. Let me give it to you plainly. The word is Amor Fati, Latin. It means love of fate. Not tolerance of fate. Not acceptance of fate. Not the grim, jaw-clenched endurance of a man waiting for hardship to pass. Love. Friedrich Nietzsche gave it its sharpest form near the very end of his working life, in Ecce Homo, and he did not hedge it. He wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it. All idealism is mendacity in the face of what is necessary. Love it." Read that ladder again, because he built it deliberately, rung by rung, to merely bear what is necessary. To grit your teeth and get through it, that is the floor, not the achievement. To conceal it, to hide the hard parts and pretend they were never there, that is worse, that is a lie. And above both of them stands the thing he actually calls for, to love it. Notice the word he attaches to this. Greatness, not coping. Not survival, not a technique for the weak to feel better about a life that beat them. Nietzsche frames Amor Fati as the mark of strength, the signature of a man with enough force in him to want nothing to be different. Not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. And let's cut off the obvious misreading right now, before it takes root. This is not passivity. It is not lying down. A man who loves his fate is not a man who does nothing. He is a man who has stopped bleeding himself dry on the one fight he was always going to lose. Everything that follows is built on that distinction. Hold it. You may already be reaching for a word you know better. Stoicism. And the instinct is half right, but only half. And the gap between them is the whole lesson. The Stoic accepts. Epictetus told his students, "Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well." That is a discipline of ascent. You stop fighting the current. You let what cannot be controlled simply be. It is calm, and it is strong, and it is not what Nietzsche is asking of you. Because acceptance is where the Stoic finishes, and it is where Nietzsche begins. He does not want you to endure your fate. He wants you to love it, to will it, to want it, to crave it back again. That is a stranger and heavier demand, and the difficulty is the entire point. Anyone can be talked into tolerating what they cannot change. It takes something far greater to look at the exact life you were handed, wounds included, and say yes. This one. I would take it again. But hear the warning buried inside the word love, because the whole culture around this idea distorts it constantly. Loving your fate is not the cold detachment of a man who has trained himself to feel nothing, the lone wolf who mistakes his numbness for strength. That is the opposite of Amor Fati. Detachment armors you against your life. Love opens you to it. To love your fate means to love the people inside it, and the losses inside it. Not to build a wall so high that nothing, good or bad, can reach you across it. This is warmth, not ice. Remember that, because everything cheap and easy wants to sell you the ice and call it power. Now understand who said it, because here the man matters more than almost anywhere in philosophy. It would be easy to picture Amor Fati as the idea of someone comfortable. A man whose life had gone well enough that loving it cost him nothing. It was the exact opposite. Nietzsche was, for most of his adult life, a sick man. Brutal, recurring migraines that could erase whole days, leaving him unable to read, unable to write, at times unable to stand. Eyesight so ruined he was nearly blind, laboring in pain over every page. A body that failed him so completely, he had to abandon his university chair at 34 and spend his remaining working years drifting between boarding houses, chasing any climate that might spare him. Isolated, barely read in his own time, estranged from people he loved, betrayed in friendship, refused in love. And at the end of it, a final collapse into a darkness he never came back from. This is the man who wrote Love Your Fate. Not from a mountaintop of ease, from inside a wrecked life, a life that gave him every rational reason to curse whatever God or accident had made him. And that is precisely why the idea carries weight instead of decoration. He did not theorize it from comfort. He forged it in the one furnace hot enough to test whether it was true. When the phrase first appears in his published work, In the Gay Science, he writes it not as a settled conclusion, but as a resolution. Almost a New Year's vow. I want to learn more and more to see as beautiful what is necessary in things, Amor Fati. Let that be my love, henceforth. Read the verb. Learn. Even for him, this was not a temperament he was born with. It was a discipline he was straining to build, in a body that was coming apart underneath him. If that lands, a sick, half-blind man deciding to love the life that was destroying him and meaning it, then you already know this channel is not the hustle noise lane. No slogans, no life hacks, the hard ideas kept at full weight for the man actually building something that has to hold up under pressure. That's the whole project here, and it's a long game, same as yours. Subscribe, and let's take this the rest of the way. So bring it down out of philosophy and into the thing you are actually building. Trace the real path that brought you here, not the polished version you'd tell at a dinner, the true one. Almost every load-bearing part of it was laid by something you did not choose. The job that fell through and forced you into the work you're now good at. The rejection that slammed a door you'd have walked through straight into the wrong life. The mentor you only met because an earlier plan collapsed. The discipline you only have because something once broke you and left you no option but to rebuild. The origin you spent years resenting, which turns out to be the exact source of the hunger driving you now. You did not design these things. You would not have chosen most of them, and they are the foundation you are standing on at this very moment. This is why Amor Fati is not sentiment for a man with something to build. It's operational. It is not a feeling you indulge on a good day. It's an accounting you run every day. A man at war with his own history is building with one hand while the other stays clenched white-knuckled around a grievance he can never win. Amor Fati prees that hand open, not by lowering your standards for what comes next, by giving you back the second hand. All that force you've been pouring into a war with what already happened comes flooding back into the work in front of you. And that is the part people miss. The love of your fate and the drive to build on it were never opposites. First is what finally unlocks the full power of the second. But an idea you merely agree with changes nothing. This has to become a practice. Something you do. It stays a nice sentence you nod at and forget by dinner. Here is the first exercise, and it looks backward. Choose the event you most wish had gone otherwise. Not a minor regret. A real one. The failure that still stings when it surfaces at 3 in the morning. The loss you'd undo in a heartbeat if the universe offered you the trade. Hold it clearly. Now, instead of arguing with it, trace the thread forward from it. Follow the line, honestly, from that event to the man sitting here right now. What capacities exist in you only because that happened? What relationships would never have formed if it hadn't? What direction is your life pointed in? The good direction, the one you'd defend to anyone? That traces back, when you're honest, to that exact wound? Do this carefully, because there is a false version and a true one, and they look almost identical from the outside. The false version pretends the thing was secretly good all along. That's the lie Nietzsche warned against. Idealism painted over what actually hurt. You don't need it, and it won't hold under pressure. You are not here to pretend the loss was a gift. You are here to see something colder and far more solid, that it was necessary, that the man you respect being, the one building this, could not exist without it. This is the disciplined, repeatable form of learning to see as beautiful what is necessary. Not a mood that visits you on a good week. A thread you learn to trace, on purpose, again and again, until the past stops being a courtroom you keep getting dragged back into and becomes, finally, ground you can plant your feet on. The second exercise is harder because it's live. The past, at least, is finished. It can't wound you in new ways. This one is about the obstacle in front of you right now. The thing you are resenting today, this week. The situation you'd escape this second if you could. Bring it to mind. Now, stop asking the question you've been asking. Stop asking why me. That question is a trap. It has no answer, and it only deepens the war. Ask instead, what is this making of me? What is it demanding I become in order to get through it? What strength, what patience, what skill is it forcing out of me that ease never would have touched? This is the working posture, and it's the whole shift in one move. You stop treating what you're given as the obstacle, and you start treating it as the material. The difficulty in front of you is not in the way of the work. Under this posture, it is the work. Then make it small enough to actually do, because a practice you can't sustain is just another good intention. Once a day, name one unchosen thing in your life, one hard fact, one closed door, one difficulty you never asked for, and refuse, deliberately, to go to war with it. Just once. Just that one. It will feel forced at first, like speaking a sentence in a language you don't have yet. Do it anyway, every day, and something quietly gives. The reflex to resent starts to lose its grip, and the posture that grows in its place, this is material, not misfortune, stops being an exercise you perform and becomes, simply, how you see. Now, Nietzsche raises the stakes as far as they will go, and hands you the sharpest test of all. Imagine, he writes, that late one night a demon slips into your loneliest loneliness and says this: "This life, as you now live it, and have lived it, you will have to live once more, and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy, and every thought and sigh and everything unspeakably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence. Not a better life. Not the highlights reel. This one. Exactly this one. Every failure in the same place. Every loss on the same day. Every humiliation and every stretch of grinding, unglamorous, unrewarded work. All of it, forever, on a loop with no edits allowed. And the only question the demon asks is this: do you want it again? Nietzsche's challenge is simple and merciless. Would you throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke? Or would you call that moment divine? Understand exactly what this is. It is not a doctrine about how the universe physically works. It is a diagnostic. It is a way of locating, with total precision, where you are still at war with your own life. Because the places where the demon's offer makes you flinch, those are the places you have not yet made peace with. The memory you couldn't bear to relive, the choice you'd beg to edit, the season you'd pay any price to skip. That flinch is the map. It shows you, better than any amount of quiet introspection, exactly where the resentment still lives in you. You don't have to pass this test today. Almost no one could. You just have to let it show you the truth. Not whether you can tolerate your life once, but whether you could stand to will it endlessly. That's the real measure, and it doesn't lie. And here, right before the end, is the fear that stops most ambitious men from ever taking this seriously. So let's kill it directly, in the open. The fear runs like this: if I love my fate, don't I stop striving? If I say yes to everything that is, don't I go soft, lose the edge, surrender the exact hunger that got me here? It's a fair fear. It is also built on a confusion, and the moment you see the confusion clearly, it dissolves. Amor Fati governs one thing, and one thing only: Your relationship to what has already happened and what genuinely cannot be changed. The past. Given. The unchosen raw material of your life. It has nothing to say about your ambition for what comes next. And it never did. You still fight for the summit. You still refuse to settle for less than what you're capable of building. You still want, badly, to win. Nothing in this asks you to shave a single degree off that. What it asks you to drop is one specific, useless weight. The resentment of the mountain you were assigned to climb. Keep the climb. You keep the fight. You simply stop poisoning every step of it with a grievance against the terrain, the starting point, the plain fact that it was this mountain and not the easier one you can see someone else on. Affirmation and drive were never enemies. The weak man believes he has to pick one, either accept his life or fight for more. The strong man holds both at full strength at once, total love for the life he was given, and total will toward the life he is building on top of it. That combination isn't a truce between two forces. It's what those two forces look like when they finally stop fighting each other and start pulling the same direction. So we come back to where we began. You were never asked. Nobody sat you down before any of it and offered you the terms, the family, the body, the timing, the wiring, the wounds. And here is the part that does not change. No matter how much you build, you never will be asked. There is no future version of this where the universe circles back around and lets you approve the conditions in hindsight. This life, the one you did not choose, is the only material you will ever be handed to build with. That is not a tragedy. That is the whole situation, seen clearly at last, maybe for the first time. And everything turns on what you decide to do with it from here. You can keep waging the war you were always going to lose, spending your strength cursing the given, relitigating the past, resenting the mountain, and arrive at the end exhausted by a fight that never moved a single stone. Or you can do the harder, stranger, stronger thing. You can love it, not resign yourself to it. Resignation is just defeat wearing a calmer face, not detach from it. Detachment is just fear that has stopped letting itself feel. Love it. In the full and difficult sense the word demands. The love of fate as the mark of a man strong enough to want nothing to be different. Not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. The day you stop resenting the life you did not choose is the day you get every ounce of your strength back for the work you were actually put here to do. It was always going to be this life. The only question left is whether you meet it like a man who wishes he'd been handed another one, or like a man who would sign, without a flicker of hesitation, for exactly this one.